You do know that just because you're successful, it doesn't mean that you won't face fear and self doubt. In fact, you may experience it even more because you're successful. I'm Valerie, and this week on Business by Design podcast, I share with you how one of my clients, a very successful woman entrepreneur, actually fell into fear and self doubt, and how I helped coach her through this most challenging situation so that she can continue to build a thriving, successful business. Let's talk about it.
Hello, I'm Valerie Priester, and this is the Business by Design podcast. Are you a woman entrepreneur who absolutely loves what you do and enjoy helping others, but for some reason you can't seem to get out of your own way? You can't seem to get out of your head and really create the level of success that you desire? I get it. I truly understand. I've been there too. You see, I spent years searching for what do they call it? The holy grail, the secret sauce, right? To success. And what I learned along the way is all of the women that I knew that were very successful had one thing in common, and that was their way of thinking. Now, I know you may be saying it can't be that simple, can't be that easy, right? But the truth is, the number one key or secret, however you want to label it, to success is your way of thinking. It's your mindset. It's what you believe and what you think is possible for you. And so that's exactly why I created this podcast. I want to help you get out of your head, get out of your own way. I want to help you get into more profits, more passion, and more power. I want to help you to shift away from old beliefs and release old ways of thinking, self sabotaging conversations, and help you shift into new beliefs that support your goals and bring lasting success. I want to help you design your victory so you can create the business and life that you desire. So if you're ready for some real talk about how to do that, if you're ready to really make the shift and move into greater possibilities and greater success, you're in the right place.
Self doubt and fear are common roadblocks for women entrepreneurs. And I think that they're greater roadblocks for us as women because, by nature, we're the nurturers, we're the emotional creatures, we're the ones that deal a lot with feelings and get in our head, about a lot of things. I think men are more black and white. That's just my opinion. But when we think about fear and self doubt, these are things that can hold us back and keep us from reaching the level of success that we really desire. And so that's why I wanted to talk about today, like, how do you continue or start showing up boldly and keep taking action towards your dreams when you're feeling like you're stuck in a moment of fear and self-doubt, right? Well, I was working with one of my clients, and she's a very successful business owner. She's been in her current business for more than 13 years and has built this business to a very thriving, successful business. And even before that, she owned several businesses. In fact, her entrepreneur journey started when she was about 20 years old, right? I think I started about that time, but I don't know if I was as successful as she is. So this just proves the point that it doesn't matter how successful you are, you still face fear and self-doubt, right? And so being successful and being in a position where she's looking to grow the business even more, there was several things that she decided to do in order to help her reach her goal of up leveling her business, right? One of which was bringing in a fractional COO, helping her to streamline and be able to run her business and her team more efficiently so that she could focus more on bringing in the right clients so that she could increase her income. Um, Trying some different marketing strategies, which meant bringing in marketing staff, and then also a different a whole different sales system, right? That focused on, again, increasing quality leads and increasing conversion rates, which in turn will increase income, right? So she brought on a whole new sales team. And, when you're bringing on all of the resources that you need in order to help you reach your goal, whether they're human resources or, whether they're tactical resources, or systems or software or whatever it is that you're doing, all of these things can result in increased expenses. And that's exactly what was happening to her, right? She started to do some Facebook ads. She hasn't done Facebook ads. In fact, she never did Facebook ads before. So she decided, to try that strategy. So that meant, again, expenses. And what was happening is, as she's trying these different things and adding human resources, she's seeing that the expenses are increasing. Well, how many of you know that it takes a moment for, before you really see the results of implementing new strategies, new marketing strategies, and bringing on sales team members and, all of the things that she has done? It takes some time before you actually see the return on investment in that. So expenses are increasing, but revenue is not increasing, right? And that can be scary. And that's literally what brought on this bout of fear and self doubt. Like, waking her up in the middle of the night, worrying about, am I going to be able to meet payroll? Am I going to be able to continue with paying the expenses? Is this business going to survive? Right. And that's real fear. That's real doubt. But I know that what was needed in that moment is really a mindset shift, right? Because here's the truth: having been an experienced business owner and having developed many successful businesses starting at the early age of 20, that lets you know that she absolutely knows what she's doing, right? But in the moment, we can forget that. We can forget that we have the ability to create a successful business. We have the ability to maintain a successful business and pay our financial obligations and do all the things that we need to do in order to keep this business moving, right? And so as we're having our session, I asked her, my first question to her was, what are you focused on when you experience these bouts with fear or self doubt? What are you focused on, right? What triggered the fear or the self doubt? Because here's what's true: we fall into fear and we fall into self doubt, but we never stop to really ask ourselves the question, what triggered this? Usually, 99% of the time, it's a thought or it could be a belief, but it starts with a thought, because a belief is only a thought that you keep having over and over again, right? It turns into a belief. So it starts with a thought. What is the thought that produced or triggered the fear or the self-doubt that you're experiencing? So that was my question to her. And as she began to, ponder this and think about, like, what was the thought? What were the things that I was focused on? And she began to list those things out. Well, she was focused on the increase in expenses. She was focused on the bank account getting smaller and smaller. She was focused on her clients not growing, right? She was focused on the marketing strategies that were not bringing immediate results. She was focused on, the fear of not being able to pay her team, right? So when you think about all of that, all of these things really are focused on one thing, and that is lack. That is the lack that you are not seeing, the things that are not happening, right? Or the fear of lack. All of those things lead to that experience of fear and self-doubt, right? So if you think about that, if that's what you're focused on, can't you see how it was so easy for her to fall into fear and to doubt and self-doubt, right? Because you're focused on all the things that are not working. You're focused on all the things that you don't see yet. But the one thing that you can see is what's producing a lot of fear, and that is an increase in expenses, right? So, as we continue talking about this, one of the things that she said to me that she knew without a shadow of a doubt is that she had to shift her thinking back to gratitude, right? It's one of the biggest things that, I really help my clients really understand and work on is that when you're in gratitude, when you are feeling and experiencing gratitude, it's really difficult for you to experience fear and self-doubt and any of the other low-level energies, right? Because gratitude is such a high level vibration. And so one of the things that she knew, of course, having worked with me for some time, she knew that she had to get back to gratitude, right? But sometimes it's difficult to get back to gratitude when the bank account isn't growing, right? It's difficult to get back to gratitude when you're not getting more clients or your income is not growing, right? But she knew the importance of that. So then my next question, of course, was, well, what do you have to be grateful for? Let's count the blessings, right? And as she began to count, the things that she had to be grateful for, she remembered an experience that she'd actually had the week before that almost escaped her mind, right? Because again, when we're worried and when we're in self doubt, we don't really focus on the things that we have to be grateful for. Well, just the week before, she was dealing with a piece of equipment that she had purchased and it was now out of warranty, but she'd had a couple of issues with it and had called out a couple of tech guys to look at it. And finally, she decided to take it back in to the store where she purchased it. And, was facing the possibility that she would just have to buy another one. And this was like a $3,000-$4,000 piece of equipment. Well, she took it back into the store, talked to the guy, told him what was going on. She'd had a couple of tech guys look at it, but it still wasn't working. And the guy said, well, just hold on a minute. Let me, go back and see what I can do, whatever. Well, he came back and said to her, well, we have one here that's the same model that's, hardly been used. And we've just been using it for demo. I'll just exchange the one you have for that one. So, huge thing to be grateful for, right? Because now she didn't have to shell out another $3,000 or $4,000 for a new piece of equipment, but this was something that was being given to her, right? And when she thought about it, she was like, oh my God, I have so much to be grateful for. But it's easy for us to overlook that when we're in worry, fear, and doubt, right? So counting her blessings helped to shift her way of thinking back to gratitude. So that's the number one way to get out of fear and self-doubt. Focus on the things that you have to be grateful for. Okay. Some other tips that I will share with you is definitely reflect on your success. So the next step that I took her through was let's go back and look at all the things that you have to be successful, that you successfully accomplished, right? That you've done in your past. Let's look at some of the things that you've overcome that were much greater than what you're dealing with right now, right? Having operated several businesses since the age of 20, there were many challenges that she overcame. So let's look at those. Let's reflect on those. And then the next thing that we worked on was recognizing the limiting beliefs, right? Remember, I asked her at the very beginning, what was the thoughts that triggered this feeling of doubt and fear? Let's look at those limiting beliefs. Let's explore how they are fueling self doubt and fear, right? And then once we identify them, let's reframe those negative thoughts, those limiting beliefs, right? Let's practice the art of reframing self talk, which I teach heavily, right? Let's shift your mindset from thoughts like, I'm not good enough to, I'm capable of success, right? And then create affirmations that support you so that you can repeat those affirmations daily and really get them into your subconscious so that, again, it creates a different belief and it creates a positive way of thinking about what is possible for you, right? And then the biggest thing that I shared with her is get in action because action breeds confidence. When you're in action, there's no room for self doubt, there's no room for fear, right? When you get in action and just do the basic things that you know work, right? Get in action with those things. And confidence comes from taking action, even small steps. When you set manageable goals and then celebrate your wins along the way, right? Your wins will build momentum and self assurance. That'll take care of the self doubt. So it's all about shifting your mindset, right? And so after taking my client through that and really helping her to understand and see where these fears and doubts were coming from and reframing and, going through those steps, she was able to then, it's almost like lifting your head and continuing to walk through this path of creating the success that you want and leaving the fear and the self-doubt behind. This is something that, again, you may have to practice over and over because fear and self doubt will hit at many different stages of your journey, right? And it happens to us not only in our business, but also in our personal lives. So these same tips that I'm sharing with you can be used in your personal life as well. Like, what are you dealing with there that is causing you to fear or have self doubt about what you're capable of? So remember, first thing is get into gratitude. Second thing is reflect on your success. Then recognize the limiting beliefs that triggered these thoughts or feelings of fear and self-doubt. And when you identify them, reframe the negative thoughts. Create affirmations that support your building of your confidence, right? And you building of your courage, your strength, everything to help you get through these periods of doubt and fear. And then, more importantly, get in action because action breeds confidence. Remember, designing your victory is a choice, and you get to decide what success will be for you, right? You can have success with or without fear. But do understand and know that it's okay if you experience fear and self doubt. Just remember to apply these tips to help you overcome it in the moment and keep moving forward. Until next time, stay strong, my friend.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Business by Design podcast. If you love what you're hearing each week, let me know by leaving a rating and a review. And don't forget to follow the show so you don't miss out on proven mindset techniques, strategies, and tools to help you design your victory and create the business and life you desire. Also, if you're ready to talk about the business and life that you really want, head on over to valeriepriester.com and schedule your private business breakthrough clarity call. Until next week, remember, designing your victory is a choice. Start today.